take the Declaration for what it is. I mean, it's not a perfect document, as us, ANCAPs would say, but it definitely inspired the revolution for sure.
That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it. And that last part right there, to me, I think it makes a great case for anarchy.
So already, as soon as this country was formed, they've already gone full statist.
Because you're starting to see that, even small government fails eventually.
It's become a worship of the state.
To me, the hot dog eating contest is the most libertarian thing about the 4th of July. Hello, and welcome to the very second episode of the Guardians of Liberty podcast. I'm Caleb, and joining me in studio today is Ryan.
Hey, how's it going?
And joining us via Skype is Steven, because he's away on business this week.
Oi, oi.
So today we have a pretty fun episode where we're talking about permits and licensings and different things like that. Before we get started, I just wanted to thank everyone who tuned into our very first episode about July 4th and the Declaration of Independence. We heard some really great feedback, and we appreciate all of our listeners.
Yeah, special shout out to Dom, whose only complaint was that it wasn't long enough.
And I'd like to apologize to my mom for swearing. She didn't like that very much, and I'm going to try my best this episode to cut that down a little bit.
I, too, would like to apologize to Mrs. Kesterson for swearing, because I know I'm the swearing guy of the group, but it's probably going to continue. But in advance, I apologize.
And Ryan, you can swear as much as you want. She doesn't even know who you are.
Oh, that's perfect.
So today we're talking about what I call the tattletale epidemic. Ryan, what did you say it is?
I call it crybaby culture.
Steve, you got any fun names for it?
Pussy ass mofo. No, I got nothing.
If you've been paying attention to the internet lately, you've seen all these videos going around of people who are calling the cops on kids and different people like that for breaking small, minor laws. And these videos are going viral, and I think it says some very bad things about our culture, but I also think it says good things because there's people who are actually reacting to this and saying, this is wrong, you shouldn't do this. I'm going to go through some names of some of the people that have gone viral. You'll recognize some of them, and then we're going to go through the videos and just kind of break it down for you. So there's BBQ Becky. She's the one who calls the cops on the people because they're barbecuing in the park. We have Permit Patty, who calls the cops on a little girl who's selling water.
Nice.
We have Bus Berater Brenda. That's a new one to me. Not sure what she did, but I assume it takes place on a bus. Lawnmower Lucy. Pool Patrol Paul. Have you guys heard of any of these ones here?
No.
Pool Patrol Paul is pretty bad. Pool
Becky,
Patrol
Patty,
Paula.
and the one dude that's on the train.
Oh, yeah. No, I've heard of Becky and Patty for sure.
Racist Roslyn. We're going to have to check that one out at some point. Burrito Bill. He's a legend. Probably my personal favorite.
Is he the guy on the train?
Yeah.
The dining on the train. Yes. Yeah, he's the best.
Yeah.
So he's the guy with no balls.
He's the guy. Yeah. He's he's the guy that literally called the cops because the guy was eating a burrito on the, what is it called? The BART.
Train.
I've been riding the BART longer than you know. If you haven't watched the video, then none of this is funny, but check it out.
Well, we're going to show it to you. So we have Jogger Joe, Walmart Mary, Airline Amy, Road Raging Randy. That sounds like a fun one also.
Yeah.
Loud Music Maggie, and Candy Bar Cora. We're going to start out today by listening to Permit Patty.
Yes.
This woman don't want to let a little girl sell some water. She calling police on an 8-year-old little girl. You can hide all you want. The whole world gonna see you, boo.
Yeah, and illegally selling water without a permit? Yeah.
On my property.
It's not your...
Illegally selling water without a permit?
What a petty. Oh, my God.
So what are some of the first thoughts that come to your guys' mind when you heard that?
I seriously like just look at her in the video and hear her talk and think she just must be the most miserable person in the world. That's the first thing.
From my understanding, it's a kid that's selling water, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
actually,
a little girl.
It's a little black girl, and a lot of the media tried to spin it into some race thing, but actually, fortunately, like Caleb said, it's kind of a good cultural wake up because almost unanimously everybody hates this girl. And the funny thing is, her job is she sells weed supplies for dogs or something like that. So you got to imagine a lot of her customer base leans a little liberty. And I guess I read an article that they pulled like a bunch of their orders and stuff from her. They basically just ruined her.
The free market.
Yeah,
it's funny. I think it was a Facebook post where basically she's like, I work in an industry where it's pretty much don't ask, don't tell. So she's clearly breaking some different laws and stuff, but she is totally fine with basically narking on other people who are doing the same thing.
Right. I did see somebody say that, it's not a race thing. I mean, really? This chick is selling weed supplies to dogs. You can't get much whiter than that. So,
that is funny. I only saw like the very basic like video of it. I never knew her background, but I saw like there was a meme of where there's like a polar bear calling the cops on like a black bear. So it makes sense to me.
These people are all over memes now.
Oh yeah.
If you're calling like the cops on like a kid, dude, you got to be a piece of shit.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay,
especially for selling water.
Exactly. I mean,
and there was a good ending.
Expensive water.
There was a good ending to the story though, because she was trying to raise money for I don't know if it was a Disney trip, Disneyland, and I don't know who it was, and that sucks that I don't remember who it was. They paid for the whole trip or whatever. It was a baseball player or somebody.
But she wasn't the one who spent 2 hours on the phone trying to reach the cops, and the cops never came. Or was that BBQ Becky?
No,
that's Becky, and we're about to get to her.
Check that out.
Okay, but like same point. Like, dude, you're such a dumbass if you call the cops on someone who's selling water.
I hear you have a problem with these gentlemen having a barbecue here at the lake. What's going on?
Oh, now she don't want to talk.
She doesn't want to talk now.
It's illegal to have a charcoal grill in the park here.
No, it's not actually. I just looked at the map. It says this is a designated barbecue area.
No, not for a charcoal grill. No charcoal grills are allowed. Do you want to see it?
Yeah, I gotta try and get me
You must not have looked up.
What kind of grill are you not allowed, and why are you so bent out of shape over them being
because
here?
it causes extra money from our city to do things when children get injured because of improperly disposed of hose.
So are you saying that they're going to hurt children out here, or I mean, like, what is with this?
There's laws about this park, and
I know the laws about this park.
And charcoal grills are not allowed here.
Okay, let's have a charcoal debate because these guys are sitting out here peacefully having a barbecue.
You guys have a problem with us having a barbecue?
Oh, here's the thing about that too.
Does anybody have a problem with them having a barbecue? Like, is there a reason why we're calling the police? If you called the police for 2 hours and you're sitting here, the police aren't coming for you, my dear.
Well, I was out here by myself, and she came up here. I'm like, look, man, I'm minding my own business. I was like, I've been here 42-something years. I know where I can and cannot barbecue at. You know what I'm saying? She was like, it's against the law. I'm going to go home and call the police. I'm like, you know what? Do what you want to do. Fire department rolled by here about 2 or 3 times, looked at me, waved, and kept going.
So that's clearly a pretty ridiculous video. These guys are just in the park grilling, and this lady took offense to it and decided to call the cops on them. It says there that she was on the phone for like 2 hours trying to get them to come there and do something about it.
Yeah. If you check out the full video, towards the end, she's crying hysterically when they never send a cop, but she ends up talking to like a cop that was walking by, and she's crying so bad, like leaning up against his car, hyperventilating. It's ridiculous.
Wait, so she was the one who waited like 2 hours?
Yeah.
All right, that says something. If you're waiting 2 hours on the police to come and crack down on somebody for a non-violent crime, and then the police actually never come.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool they didn't come. They clearly didn't think it was an emergency.
But you'd think that they thought it was an emergency. Like, oh, wait, somebody's doing a nonviolent crime?
The guy even said that a fire truck drove by and was waving at the firefighters.
They waved back.
And they waved back at him.
No, I like when they start questioning her about why it should be illegal and everything like that. She's like, well, it costs the city a lot of money if kids get hurt. What is she even talking about?
I don't know.
I think there's just psychologically something really wrong with these people. But what we do see is they feel that they can call the cops at any time to come and step in when they feel something is wrong. And I think that's a big problem with the nanny state that we have today.
Those kind of people, those are the reason that we aren't free.
Yeah.
I think about that. It's like the tweet I had about like somebody said that Democrats are anarchists, and it's like, no, they're not, man. They love the state. They need the state to take care of them.
That was Trump.
But when you think about it, it's also
Trump.
the same for the Republicans, man. They need the state too. They can't imagine a state of anarchy.
I think you can relate it to the way they use the state, the same way they vote. They vote with only self-interest in mind, and they, same thing. They may look up a law real quick because everybody's got a smartphone and say, oh, they're doing something I don't like. I'm going to find something that you can look and throw the book at somebody for doing just about anything if you dig real deep. But I'm glad people are waking up and they're getting memed and they're getting berated on the internet for basically being a bunch of crybabies.
Well, that is like the one good point you can take from this is like from left to right, you can see that people are clearly making fun of this. Like as soon as I saw this video, the memes came out just making fun of them. And from left to right, people were giving this girl shit because she's such a crybaby dumbass.
Yeah. And I like that in Rogan's podcast. He had a theory that BBQ Becky and Permit Patty were the same person. Because they're
Never seen them together.
He said they're the same shape. There's no way they're happy. It's just all this good stuff.
So one thing that I noticed is all these people who are the tattletales are older people. All these people that are outraged by it seem to be young people. And we've always been told we've kind of been raised in a generation that's like full of entitlement and all this stuff. But it's clearly coming from this older culture, this idea that they need to just, tell on people if they're not following the rules. And I can't think of anything more entitled than that.
Yeah, that's an excellent point.
Well, even the guy who was on the train, and we'll get to that video later, but he was an older guy too, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's the oldest.
I've been riding the BART longer than you know.
Let's jump right into that one.
I love this one.
My personal favorite, Burrito Bill.
When you get off, you can't wait. Sign says no eating and drinking. You don't get it? You don't get it. You must be stupid. I've seen people like you on TV. I tell you what, I'll get the police on board. How about that? Excuse me. Yes, please. Can you get a policeman on board here? We got somebody dining in the first car. Number 356. He's dining. Eating on the train? Thank you very much.
All right, so that's a really ridiculous video. I mean, there's just a guy sitting there just eating a burrito, minding his own business. And this guy in the seat next to him was just clearly very offended by that.
He must have wanted some of the burrito. I have no idea how that could really upset him that much. But I do like to imagine, and if you're only getting the audio and you don't see the video, there's a point where he goes to the back of the car and calls the police, and he has to repeat himself. And I like to imagine that whoever's ever on the other end of that says that someone's dying on the train, and he's like, no, dining, they're eating.
Eating on the train?
Eating on the train. Oh, my goodness.
I do like that the people on the train are like halfway sticking up for him. They're like, dude, he's just eating a burrito.
By the end of it,
they're like,
he's not the problem.
They're all cracking up at this guy, like about how crazy and absurd he is. I think one of the funniest parts for me is after he goes back to his seat, he pulls out his phone and starts taking a picture of the guy eating the burrito. And he just has this look like, I got you now, punk.
And it's just picture perfect because the guy's got this goofy face, and it's perfect.
Yeah, buddy's just trying to eat his burrito. But like, can you imagine? Like, man, I hope that guy went and checked for his balls after that, because like, I guarantee he doesn't have any.
Oh God.
Can you imagine loving government that much that there's a rule like that? That, you know, nobody. This guy's probably on his way to work, hasn't eaten breakfast yet, and you feel the need to enforce any rule that you've read.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
dude, it's
again,
like
I
one
think-
thing if you're pissed off at someone for like maybe like chewing with their mouth open or something, but like desperately crying for government to come and like shut this guy down for eating a burrito. Like, dude, you're such a pussy at that point.
Well, it goes. It's like I said. It goes back to these people have to be just miserable, and for them to like, oh, he's breaking the rules. I've got to do something about this. And you watch.
Thinks
that
he's a
video.
hero in
He
his own
thinks
mind.
he's noble. Yeah, he thinks he's doing the right thing. It's just sick.
That speaks to like where we are as like a fucking people right now, though. Like, people desperately cry for the government to take care of them, and for things as simple as someone eating a burrito on a train.
Yeah, it's a good thing we got them.
Yeah, God forbid, without the government, who would protect us from the
There'd be
burrito?
burrito wrappers everywhere.
That's a fair point. Now that I think about it, though.
You say that because I'm Mexican?
No, because the guy was eating a burrito. Jeez, you're racist.
No, it's because you're Mexican. All right, so we're going to get into the kind of meat of what we want to talk about today. We're going to go through this article about a little kid or little kids and their lemonade stand, and we're going to kind of break it down for you. So this article is from the Miami Herald. I think this is a title. It's kind of weird. It's "Kids Were Selling Lemonade for Charity Until the Police Arrived to Stop It," Colorado mom says. All right, so already we see kids selling lemonade for charity, and the police had to come. Good use of their time. While one's child lemonade was raising thousands, another was getting shut down by police this past weekend. Jennifer Knowles told CBS Denver that she was trying to teach her 3 sons, Ben, William, and Jonathan, about entrepreneurship and charity by letting them run a lemonade stand in Denver, Colorado on Monday. She told McClatchy that the boys decided they wanted to help a 5-year-old boy in Indonesia as part of Compassion International, a nonprofit based in Colorado Springs. The money would sponsor the boy through the charity. I mean, so already we're seeing they're doing it for good reasons, right? They're helping somebody.
Props to the parents here I think it's pretty cool so far. You're gonna continue.
They set up at a park across the street from their home. I think this is key because when I first heard of this story, I thought they were like just in like downtown Denver or something, but it looks like they're right across the street from their house. And the stand seemed to be a success. But less than an hour had passed when the police showed up. The officers were there to shut down the stand. "My boys were crushed. They were devastated. I can't believe that happened," Knowles told ABC7. Non-mobilized food vendors need a temporary permit in order to sell food and non-alcoholic beverages at a city-approved designated sites, according to the city's Parks and Recreation Department. So I hear Parks and Recreation, and I just imagine Leslie Knope shutting this down.
Chris Pratt?
You think he'd shut it down?
I don't know. I've never seen the show. I just know he's in it.
He'd be the one selling the lemonade. Its website says vendors or food trucks with no permit aren't allowed in or within 300 feet of the Denver Park or Parkway unless it's associated with a special event. It would have cost the family $25 for the application and $100 for a one-day fee. Knowles says they made about $200, $50 to $75 of which came from lemonade and the rest from generous tips. A spokesperson for the permitting department told ABC7 that there are no rules that prohibit or protect lemonade stands. CBS Denver reports Knowles suspected a nearby lemonade vendor called the cops on the family. The family stand was selling lemonade for $2 for $1, while the other vendor was selling glasses of lemonade for $7 each.
Dumbasses.
And that's going to be important later when we talk about this. The news station, Knowles told McClatchy she knows someone reported them, but doesn't know who. The Denver Police Department told McClatchy that the officers received several complaints for the permitted vendors. about a stand without a permit that was set up at the same event. The department says it doesn't go out of its way to enforce matters of this nature, but it has an obligation to act on the complaints. Knowles says she'd be hesitant to let her boys have another lemonade stand because there are no laws to protect them in Denver.
Yeah, so I mean, just right there, you kind of get a little bit of everything. You know, the police are there within an hour. They even admit that this isn't something that they go out of their way to look for, but once again, you know, they're just following orders. I think one of the big differences maybe between Permit Patty and BBQ Becky and all the other crybabies that we discussed is who reported the kids for their lemonade stand was the other vendor, the licensed vendor who was selling them for $7 a cup. So this is where, you know, licensing basically in protectionist laws discourage competition. And it's not a good lesson. It's not a good lesson for the kids because you're basically telling them, okay, well, you know, you want to make money for a charity. You know, you can't sell a product or try to raise money like that. You should just ask for donations. And I don't think that teaches them a lesson of value at all. So I can't give kids like this credit. You know, they're making most of their money, obviously, with the numbers that they got from charity, from like generous tips and stuff like that. But yeah, it's pretty sickening.
So if we just break down the numbers, it costs them $125 if they went the legal route to do this stand. It said their lemonade sales just for the lemonade was between $50 and $75. You see how this math already doesn't add up?
Right, exactly. I mean, they either have to close up shop or raise their prices to where the other one is. And I think this is what, you know, when you're talking about protectionist laws, you know, the part where you said, you know, laws prohibiting non-mobilized food vendors from conducting business without a permit are solely to protect the other businesses, such as in this case, you have a vendor licensed selling it at 14 times the cost of the kids' lemonade stand.
Exactly.
So, unfortunately, though, high prices are one of several reasons that people, especially, not to pick on the lefties, but people on the left express hatred for capitalism. Whenever you hear people talk about how expensive food, housing, transportation, and other basic costs of living and them being so high, they jump right over the part where they use government force as a consequence of not acquiring a proper license or permit to basically play the game.
Okay, so whenever we talk about like economics or like this kind of thing, I always tell people like if you want a simple lesson on economics, watch the movie Daddy Daycare, because essentially there's one daycare that has basically a monopoly on the market, and then the dads start their own daycare and they start undercutting them. They start offering a better service. And what does that other daycare do? They go to the government to force them with licenses, to force them with all these regulations to make sure that they can actually like be in business. So this is kind of the same thing. You have people here who are undercutting the other business. They're doing a great job selling a better product. And then those people go and tattletale to the government and try to get the government to crack down on them.
Exactly. So one of the absurd things that sticks out to me is the fact that this other lemonade stand has been able to sell for $7 a glass. And the reason they're able to do that is because up to this point, through permits and licensing and things like that, they've able to just get their competition out of the way and raise the prices. Everybody gets worried about monopolies. We've seen that throughout American history.
You can't really have a monopoly without crony capitalism. You can't.
Yeah.
A true monopoly can't exist without some type of government coercion or force. So, I mean, you like right now you have something that people would love to call a monopoly like Amazon, but until somebody comes along that can, I mean, everybody hates Amazon so much. Yeah, I mean, you can literally get stuff as cheap as you can get it delivered to your house in like 2 days.
And what would happen if they jack their prices?
Exactly. Somebody else would come in and do it. You already have things like Etsy. There's a whole bunch of different companies that do it. It's just Amazon's doing it best, and they keep innovating and keep doing it. What was it, 10 years ago, everybody complained about Walmart. Walmart, they're the monopoly. They're taking over the world, blah, blah, blah. And look at and just aside from all that and on the philanthropy end, look what these people do. Look how much money they give to charity. They do a much better job of actually being charitable, not like through subsidization and taxation like government does, to help people. I mean, we're going to talk about that here in a little bit, but yeah.
But that's what's funny is like everybody hates monopolies, like from left to right, even though they don't quite understand it. Because like even Bernie Sanders speaks on monopolies, but he just wants the government to be one giant monopoly. But like back in 2007, The Guardian wrote an article on will MySpace ever lose its monopoly on social networks?
Exactly.
Where's MySpace now?
Yeah, that's so laughable now.
Yeah. Speaking of Bernie Sanders, what do you think he thinks about this entrepreneurship? He probably thinks we're training these evil little millionaires. We're going to train them the next first generation of millionaires and billionaires.
He probably
no way
thinks
these
they
kids
should get minimum wage, though.
he probably the lemonade should be free. It should be free,
and the children should not have to work.
There should only be one flavor of
wage?
lemonade. Why do you need raspberry lemonade and strawberry lemonade? It should be one flavor.
Well, you don't need both of those.
That is true. You don't need both of those, especially you, Ryan.
What the hell? Oh, nice. I'm an Arnie Palmer guy.
But to get like out of the government aspect of it too, it's like what kind of precedent are we setting for kids when we shut down their lemonade stands? Like when you're a neighbor and you call the cops on them, like what are we telling them? In this country, all the time we talk about the land of the free and we celebrate the land of the free. But do you really have freedom if you can't even operate your own lemonade stand when you're calling the cops on them?
Well, right. But I think the difference here, like I said, is the motivations, where the motivations lie. It's coming, the protectionist laws are, they're encouraged and they're built up and give government more power from actual business owners. I mean, you look at, it goes in all different kinds of businesses, but I like to look at cosmetology and hair care. Like that is one of the most rough, like brutalizing things to try to go through and get a license for. It takes 2 years or something like that to get a license to cut hair. Like you literally have to take like anatomy classes and different things like that. And it's just absurd. And all that started from was, barbers who, were charging for this skill that only they had. And then people just figured out how to do it and they come in and undercut them and they can't compete. So instead of trying to be competitive, provide better service, they just use Big Brother to keep the little guys out and protect their business. And like I said, the biggest thing that I think is a problem with today's culture, especially on the left, is that they'll look at these things, the high prices, labor issues, minimum wage law, and they just constantly want to blame capitalism. When it's not a result of capitalism, it's a result of crony capitalism, which is totally different. You have to have the arm and the force of government in order for crony capitalism to work.
All right, so we clearly see the negatives on the government side of things, but I want to kind of look at a positive side of this, and that's the response of the free market. So we have another article here. It's called "Country Time Lawyers Give Legal Aid to Squeeze Lemonade Stands." Kind of a clever name, I guess.
A bunch of puns in there for Caleb.
There's so much to work with there. I'm not going to read through this article, but the gist of it is that basically the lemonade stand incident we just talked about was just one of many that is currently going on. There's all kinds of stories across the country. And Country Time, a private company, got wind of this, and they decided they wanted to step in and do something about it. And they pay legal fees of some of these lemonade stands that are going through tough times. They're sponsoring some of them, all kinds of different stuff like that, where they realize that these are young entrepreneurs, and it's good not only to help those kids, but they're going to help their own business in the process.
Oh, yeah. It's an excellent marketing thing. They got a website and everything. Basically, just say, submit and register here. You're going to get some marketing info, of course, because it's good for them. But they're going to pay all the fines or whatever is associated with not operating operating a lemonade stand without a permit. I think the article starts off with something like life gives you arcane laws, make lemonade. So
that's clever.
For me, it's basically like the same thing when whatever pizza joint that was. What was it? Who was doing the
Domino's,
road?
baby.
Man.
Domino's.
So it's basically
Bad
like
pizza,
Domino's when
great
Domino's like
marketing.
takes incentive to do the roads, and it's Pornhub. Whenever Pornhub plowed the roads,
Yeah.
to me,
Well,
it's just a
seriously.
free market reaction to a problem that we have. But it just shows you that in the free market, these people will take care of their own.
And they're doing it
And-
for free,
Yeah.
Yeah,
just for the
I-
marketing.
They're getting marketing gain out of it, obviously. But yeah,
but it could go wrong. It could go wrong to the point where they actually lose money on this kind of thing.
yeah,
But
well,
they're
yeah.
doing it anyway.
Oh no, absolutely. And the thing, well, here's the thing. I don't remember last time I had a Domino's pizza, but I remember it not being very good. But I'm thinking about getting a Domino's pizza now. This guy, the president or the CEO comes right out and says, "Hey, we're gonna go fix the potholes. Call us and tell us where there's potholes." Because we don't want to have your pizza get all jacked up when it's on the way to your house. Like how, not only are they doing a brilliant marketing strategy, and like you said, Steve, they might be losing money on it at the end of the day, but they're making the government look so bad while they're doing it. Like they can't. They're literally in the business of making a pizza pie, and they're out fixing potholes, and then they put
Right.
Domino's like logos right on it. It's
And
just awesome.
even Elon Musk today came out. So today's the 12th. I saw
Yeah.
a tweet by him. He's trying to fix Flint's water crisis, and he's just basically showing you how inept government is at this kind of stuff, and how
Absolutely.
these guys in the free market can fix these problems.
Yeah.
Now, sure, you can complain about all day about how like, oh well, they're making a profit, but by making a profit, they're improving the lives of how many people?
Yeah. Well, not only that, but without the profit incentive, then nobody's going to do these things anyway. And that's the problem that people seem to, especially statists and left and right, they just they don't understand that they think government's just out doing the good thing for the right thing and the blah blah blah. But no, there has to be a profit incentive. There has to be some type of incentive in order to enact like that. So.
Yeah, they've criminalized the word profits as if it's some kind of bad thing. Well, it's like, oh, well, this dude's going to improve the standard of living for how many people?
Exactly.
And he's going to make a profit
Actually,
for
Elon
doing it.
Musk responded to somebody who said, like, he's a billionaire, and they got in an argument on what a billionaire means and things like that. And he just was basically like, I'm responsible for like 300,000 families having jobs. So what
Yeah.
have you done? It's like,
Yeah, I saw that.
So is there any other points you guys want to hit as far as this permitting stuff goes or this free market response to it?
I want to talk about the police. Can we do that?
Yeah.
yeah. Before we do that, I do want to say there's a really excellent book series. Most of our listeners probably know the Tuttle Twins series by Connor Boyack. There's one called Food Truck Fiasco, and it couldn't hit this point much better. And I mean, my kids are 11 and 6, and they just love it. Like, there's a guy named Big Bob, and he has a barbecue joint.
Burrito
And-
Bob.
No, it's Big Bob's Barbecue. My kids, they'll tell me what it is. And I'm telling you, it got kids to understand protectionist laws and how cronyism works and things like that, and in a fun way. It's like the guy gets in touch with the mayor to get the food truck shut down and put more regulation on them. It's like even if you think it's a boring subject, it's something that makes it more fun for kids. And I recommend that book and pretty much everything in the book series.
And we'll link to that in our show notes as well.
Well, I want to talk about like the kids back with the lemonade stand, and like if you're calling the cops on them, just what we're setting for these kids, what they're to believe is that like if you don't have these kind of licenses, if you don't have this kind of permission, the government will violently shut you down. I mean, these cops didn't come there and say, "Hey, we think you guys should shut down." They're saying, "Hey, you have to shut down." And, if you don't, the threat is violence. So I think that also says a thing about our police, that these people have kind of been conditioned to believe that they're like this righteous hand of justice that they've almost convinced themselves that by shutting these kids down, they're doing the right thing. And it goes back to those people too, that I think those people have this adherence to the law where they think just by following it, they're doing justice. But just blindly following the law, you're not someone who's, just. You're just like a moral, absent person just for believing in the law. A lot of times throughout history, we find that the law is wrong and,
Later
unjust.
on, we find out.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, when the article what Caleb just read to us, I mean, didn't the mom at some point say, like, they were so reliant on the law that she's like, I'm not going to let them go out and do a lemonade stand anymore because there's no laws to protect them.
Yep.
How absurd is that? That's like them saying, I can't let my kids go to that side of the neighborhood because it's a dangerous part of the neighborhood or something like that. Like they're going to be in trouble, like they're going to be in danger. They can't sell lemonade across the street from their house. And their mom's got to protect them from that because the law's not. So there's two things wrong with that. One, what a bullshit law. Two, why should the mom count on a law to protect her kids from running a lemonade stand?
I think it's funny because as anarchists, we realize that fighting government with government is a losing proposal. Anytime you fight government by instituting new laws, you're just creating a larger government.
Yeah. What's funny is that, like, with all these laws, or I mean, with these stories, there were legitimately police who came down and shut these lemonade stands. But to be fair, there were the police that would come and they didn't actually shut them down. They actually said, well, this is kind of stupid, whatever. We won't shut you down. And I guess there's good with that. Whenever there's a cop who won't actually enforce an unjust law, I'm not going to, discredit that cop. But I think there's also some bad with that just because there's cops picking and choosing which laws to enforce. But
well, if they're picking not to harass little kids, I'm cool with that. If that's the one they're going to pick.
Right,
out.
but you can get into this. You fall into this trap then where you're talking about, well, okay, well, here's an example of a good cop. He's not enforcing this unjust law. But then it takes away from the argument. Well, what did this cop do 5 minutes before that? Did he enforce a seatbelt law? Did he enforce some other stupid, pointless law? And then 5 minutes after that, what did he do? So it does take away a little bit from the argument that what Robert Hicks says is that there are no good cops.
Well,
we get if there's, what I'm saying, if there's this one cop who like protects this lemonade stand, that's cool and all. But what does he do? What else is his job? His job is to enforce laws. And so I think it can take away from the argument that there aren't any good cops in reality.
One good deed doesn't make up for all the other stuff he's doing.
I've always liked the theory that there's cops that are good people or possibly inherently good people, but when they're a cop, they can't. It's impossible. It's like an oxymoron. It's hard to be a good cop.
I think.
Well, no, I know. I know exactly what you're saying. I have friends who want to be cops and stuff, and they're good people otherwise. But you get into this trap where once you start working for the state, you kind of lose your morality, and you just start enforcing the laws, and you don't really think twice about them.
No, yeah, the whole following orders thing, and that's the thing that I don't like with this whole the thin blue line movement and protect the police and stuff. It's like, no, aren't the police supposed to protect us? I mean, not that I agree that they should, but isn't that their job? And now we got to protect.
Their number one duty shouldn't be to protect themselves. If that's the case, they shouldn't be doing that job to begin with.
Well, not only that, but if that's the case, then they could just say, oh, I feared for my life. Bang.
Well, the thin blue line itself is stupid. I finally Googled what it actually meant. I thought it was just some stupid thing. But apparently the thin blue line is like that little line that protects us from anarchy and order. Which, when you think about chaos, the police are out there shooting people's dogs, shooting people, killing people. I mean, as far as government violating of people's rights, there's no bigger violator of rights than the government itself.
Yeah.
So this idea that they're the ones who protect us from chaos is just fucking insane. They're the biggest violator. They're the biggest ones guilty of chaos.
Yeah. And the word anarchy gets a real bad rap nowadays. It's I mean, I think that we look at the word anarchy and the way that probably 90+% of general people look at the word is totally different, black and white. I mean, if we could actually explain to them what we mean. And that's why I like the term voluntarist. I do like to use, or voluntarist, how you say it.
You could do both.
Yeah.
Well,
I
it
think
doesn't
it's
help
fear.
that the ANCOMs have, declared themselves anarchists when they just want a bigger state.
Yeah, ANCOM is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
It's the fucking biggest oxymoron ever. All right, go ahead, Caleb.
I just think that the biggest hang up for people when it comes to hearing words like anarchy and actually thinking about it in a logical way is the word has been instilled as something that's supposed to just bring them fear.
Yeah.
Right? It's the fear of the unknown. It's the fear of the lack of the rule of law, all these things that are constantly hammered into our head from news, from politicians, from government schools. We're trained to fear that word and to associate it with another word called chaos.
Yep.
I get that. Yeah, definitely. But for me, like, the weirdest thing is, like, it's crazy how universally hated the government is. Like, from left to right, people acknowledge that the government is corrupt. It's unjust. It's filthy. Like, if you got a Republican in office, the Democrats hate it. Like, think about how much the fucking left hates Donald Trump and the government right now. And then think about, several years ago, whenever it was when Obama was in office, how much the right hated it. Yet for some reason, there exists this like slavish loyalty to the violent enforcement wing of that government, which we all acknowledge as corrupt. It's fucking insane.
Yep. And in aspects of the police and the military, they get a pass because people hate government so much. They hate the politics of it. They hate Capitol Hill. They think they're all a bunch of sleazy, what they think of them what they are. But then the people at the end that are just following orders, they feel like they need to step up and say, well, they're just following orders. Okay, well,
Of the corrupt people.
I mean,
right.
I understand it, but the people compare it to Nazism. Like you talk about this day and age, how much Nazi culture gets brought up with like the alt-right movement and all these Antifa or whatever, how they talk about Nazis and how horrible the Nazis were. Look, the Nazis they had less of a choice than the people that work for our government now, as far as being the enforcing arm of law or arm of the state, whether it's domestically or abroad. The Nazis, I mean, if you defected, you could be killed. And here we have in our country, these are paid voluntarily working for the government, right. and like I said, some of them could be good people, but ultimately, if they are the following orders type, then it doesn't really matter what their job description is, what they're told to do, what the task is. It's just carry on down the line, and if it's murder, it's murder. If it's shutting down a kid's lemonade stand, then it's shutting down a kid's lemonade stand.
It's part of like what's so fucking like go back to our last episode where we talked about like freedom and the 4th of July. It's like people in this country celebrate freedom, but they also at like the same time have no problem with backing the violent enforcement wing of the government. It's fucking the most like hypocritical, mind-blowing, like playing two sides of the spectrum at the same time fucking thing ever. Like, you're fucking stupid, dude.
Well, especially on the left. I mean, with the gun debates and everything, and that's probably a whole nother discussion, but they want our guns to be taken away. We just lose all gun rights,
but
turn
Trump
in the guns.
Hitler.
But Trump is Hitler. It's like, do you realize
Trump,
the fallacy in what you're trying to say?
Like Trump is Hitler. He's
Trump is Hitler.
He's going to kill us all. He's going to put us all in
guns.
concentration camps. But here's the government that should be in charge of all our healthcare. Here's the government who should have ownership of all the guns.
Yeah.
It's fucking mind-blowingly stupid.
I think a lot of this goes back to our education system. And this is really funny. So our last episode was about the 4th of July and the Declaration of Independence. Why we celebrate Independence Day, obviously. I was talking to a guy who taught in public education. He was a tenured teacher. Like, he was teaching high schoolers, and he was talking to me about what the day meant. And he said, well, it's the day that we celebrate when we signed the Constitution and formed a new government. And I'm like, oh, this guy's pulling my leg. He's just trying to get a rise out of me. So I was like, so why do we celebrate the 4th of July? Can you tell me that again? He's like, it's when we signed the Constitution and formed a new country. He was dead serious, and this was a guy who taught for 10 years high schoolers. That's our public education system.
It's amazing.
Well, I mean, think back when we were in school or whatever. Think about all the things that we learned. Like, who were like the greatest presidents that we learned about?
Oh, Lincoln, baby.
Lincoln, FDR, George Washington.
Lincoln, Washington, probably. And FDR probably too.
And now
FDR.
that
Although
you come to
play
study
party
history,
politics with
like,
FDR.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's like you come to study history. Like, who do you hate the most? Like, in your top 5, you got to have like FDR and Lincoln.
Oh, Lincoln for sure.
I fucking hate Lincoln. He's my least favorite. I'll never fucking bend on that.
And we might do an episode where we go through this. And I mean, clearly the worst 5 are FDR, Wilson, Lincoln, Washington, and probably Bush. Bush Jr.
Bush Jr.
Although Bush Sr.
Bush or Obama. I
too.
hated Obama. But
yeah, I mean, they progressively have more power. So
here's
in
what's
defense,
really,
he was just like a worse continuation of everything Bush started.
True.
Here's what's really sad is that Trump's like the best we can do over the last like 30 years, and he's hated by the country. And not that we support him in any way, because like I try telling people, it's like saying that it's a better tasting piece of shit because it's not. It's not. By comparison, sure.
Think about how bad Trump is, actually.
I agree.
Do you know what's funny to me though? If you grew up in like a conservative house, you were always told how awesome Ronald Reagan was and how he was this beacon of conservatism. And I'm like, okay, I wasn't really there. I can't refute it that much other than what I've, since learned. But then those same people are comparing Trump to Reagan. And I'm like, holy shit, Reagan wasn't good at all.
Reagan was a much better drug dealer, though, I think.
Yet to be determined, but yeah, as of now. All right, fellas. Is there anything else you wanted to add to this conversation?
I just want to say you're fucked up if you call the police on little kids for selling lemonade, and you're fucked up if you're a police officer who comes and violently enforces your will on those kids selling lemonade.
And licensing is tyranny. I didn't quite cover that today, but we'll get into that some other time.
Yeah, licensing is basically the government selling your rights back to you, so it's bullshit.
Exactly. All right. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you again soon.